Welcome to Epic World History. In a land divided by ideology and blood, Spain rose from the ashes of civil war to forge a new destiny. From the fall of the Republic to Franco's iron rule, from suffering and silence to the rebirth of democracy, this is the story of a nation's struggle, sacrifice, and renewal, where the past breathes and history lives again. In the early 20th century, Spain was a nation deeply divided. The monarchy had fallen, and a republic emerged in 1931, but its instability quickly became apparent. Social unrest, economic struggles, and regional independence movements strained the nation. Workers demanded reform, landowners feared change, and the military watched with growing unease. The left-wing government of the Spanish Republicans clashed bitterly with conservative and fascist factions who longed for the past. By 1936, Spain had become a nation divided by ideology, faith, and fear. The tension could no longer be contained. A spark was about to ignite one of the most devastating conflicts in modern European history, the Spanish Civil War. The spark that would plunge Spain into chaos ignited on July 17, 1936. A group of army officers, led by General Francisco Franco, launched a military uprising against the Spanish Republican government. The coup began in Spanish Morocco, quickly spreading across the mainland. Though it failed to seize total control, it split the country in two. Cities like Madrid and Barcelona remained loyal to the Republic, while vast rural regions fell to the nationalists. What began as a rebellion soon turned into a full-scale civil war. Families were divided, neighbors became enemies, and the ideals of democracy and tradition clashed violently. The world watched as Spain descended into one of the bloodiest ideological conflicts of the 20th century. The Spanish Republicans were a coalition born out of hope and defiance. Though divided in ideology, uniting communists, anarchists, socialists, and liberal Democrats, they stood together against the rise of Franco's nationalists. They believed in a Spain guided by democracy, equality, and workers' rights, a vision for a new, fairer society. Backed by laborers, peasants, and intellectuals, their movement symbolized the struggle for freedom amid tyranny. On the streets of Madrid and Barcelona, young volunteers took up arms, believing they were fighting not just for their homeland, but for the soul of Spain itself. Yet beneath their unity lay deep fractures. Rivalries between anarchists and communists, conflicting ideals, and political distrust eroded their strength. On the opposing side stood the Spanish Nationalists, an alliance bound by loyalty to tradition, hierarchy, and faith. Led by General Francisco Franco, a career soldier known for his discipline and strategic mind, they sought to restore order to what they saw as a nation in chaos. To the nationalists, the Republic represented moral decay and the collapse of Spanish identity. Their ranks were filled with army officers, conservative politicians, religious leaders, and the landed aristocracy. Backed by the Catholic Church and inspired by the growing wave of fascism sweeping through Europe, Franco's movement promised unity and strength under authoritarian rule. Through grand parades, fiery speeches, and military discipline, The nationalists presented themselves as the saviors of Spain, determined to rebuild the country in their image. The Spanish Civil War soon became more than a battle for Spain. It was a stage upon which the world's ideologies collided. As Europe's political tensions deepened, foreign powers saw in Spain a testing ground for their ambitions. Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany and Benito Mussolini's fascist Italy swiftly sided with Franco, sending planes, tanks, and troops to support his cause. Their forces bombed Republican cities and provided the nationalists with deadly efficiency. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union came to the aid of the Spanish Republicans, supplying weapons, advisors, and propaganda, though often hindered by mistrust and bureaucracy. Across the world, volunteers from dozens of nations joined the international brigades to fight for the Republic. What began as a civil war now mirrored the larger ideological divide between fascism and communism. In November 1936, the heart of Spain became a battlefield. The Battle of Madrid was one of the earliest and most decisive clashes of the war. As Franco's nationalist forces advanced toward the capital, the city's defenders, Republican soldiers, workers, and ordinary citizens stood their ground. With support from Soviet advisors and the international brigades, volunteers from across the world joined the fight to protect the Republic's last stronghold. The streets turned into fortresses, with barricades built from rubble and burnt-out vehicles. Artillery echoed through narrow alleys, and the skies darkened with smoke from relentless bombings. Though the nationalists expected a swift victory, Madrid refused to fall. The city became a symbol of courage and resistance, enduring immense suffering but inspiring hope that liberty could still prevail. In the rugged hills of the Basque Country, the Spanish Civil War took on a deeper tragedy. The Basque people, who had long fought for autonomy and identity, were now trapped between two warring sides. In April 1937, their struggle reached its darkest hour. At Franco's request, German aircraft from the Condor Legion descended upon the quiet town of Guernica. For hours, waves of bombers turned the city into rubble, killing hundreds of civilians and leaving thousands homeless. Churches, markets, and homes burned together as the sky rained destruction. The attack shocked the world, becoming one of the first deliberate bombings of a civilian population in modern warfare. Guernica was reduced to ashes, yet its memory endured a haunting reminder of the cost of total war, immortalized later by Picasso's powerful painting that bore the town's name. Amid the chaos of Spain's civil war, a new force emerged, the International Brigades. Drawn from over 50 nations, these volunteers came not for conquest or wealth, but for conviction. They believed that defending the Spanish Republic was defending democracy itself. Students, poets, workers, and soldiers of conscience crossed borders to fight fascism, united by a common hope. Among them was George Orwell, whose time on the front lines would inspire his classic homage to Catalonia. Yet, for all their courage and idealism, the brigades were not immune to the internal rifts tearing at the Republic. Miscommunication, political suspicion, and the hardships of war tested their unity. Still, their presence left a lasting legacy, a testament to international solidarity and the belief that ordinary people, united in purpose, could stand against tyranny. By early 1937, the war's toll on Spain had become unbearable. The Battle of Jarama, fought in February near the Jarama River southeast of Madrid, marked one of the bloodiest confrontations of the conflict. Franco's nationalist army, reinforced by German and Italian troops, sought to cut off Madrid from the rest of Republican territory. The Republicans, including many from the international brigades, fought desperately to stop the advance. Soldiers dug deep trenches into the dry soil, enduring relentless artillery fire, aerial bombardments, and fierce hand-to-hand combat. For days, the battlefield became a landscape of chaos and courage. Though the Republicans managed to halt the nationalist advance temporarily, the cost was devastating. Thousands lay dead or wounded, and the battle revealed the growing strength of Franco's forces. Amid one of the coldest winters in Spanish history, the Battle of Teruel unfolded between December 1937 and February 1938. Hoping to regain momentum, the Republicans launched a surprise offensive to capture the city from Franco's forces. At first, the attack succeeded. Republican troops fought through blizzards and seized much of Teruel, raising hopes across the Republic. But the triumph was short-lived. As temperatures plunged far below freezing, soldiers endured frostbite, starvation, and exhaustion. The nationalists counterattacked fiercely, supported by superior air power and artillery. Weeks of bitter fighting turned the snow red with blood. Eventually, the Republicans were forced to retreat, leaving behind a frozen wasteland and thousands of casualties. In early 1939, after years of fierce fighting, the Republican forces began to crumble. Franco's nationalists had gained substantial ground, and the Spanish Republican stronghold of Catalonia, with its key city of Barcelona, became the next major target. The nationalists launched a brutal offensive in January 1939, pushing the Republicans out of Catalonia and capturing Barcelona by February. The fall of Catalonia marked the beginning of the end for the Spanish Republic, as Franco's forces advanced toward Madrid. By March 1939, the Republicans had little left to fight with. Madrid fell to Franco's nationalists on March 28, 1939, marking the official end of the Spanish Civil War. Franco declared victory, establishing a fascist dictatorship that would last for nearly 4 decades. The defeat of the Republicans was not just a loss of political power, but also the end of the aspirations for a more democratic and just Spain. Franco's Spain would remain isolated for years, though it was soon seen as a potential ally by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. The Spanish Civil War left deep scars on the nation. Over 500,000 people lost their lives in the conflict, and many more were wounded or forced into exile. The war also devastated Spain's infrastructure, which would take years to rebuild. Franco's regime initiated a period of repression, targeting those who had supported the Republicans. Political opponents were imprisoned, executed, or forced into labor camps. The cultural and intellectual life of Spain was stifled under Franco's authoritarian rule. When World War II erupted in 1939, Franco's Spain remained officially neutral, although it leaned toward the Axis powers. Franco's support for Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy was cautious and pragmatic. He offered some assistance to Hitler, including sending volunteers to fight alongside the Germans on the Eastern Front, but he was hesitant to fully commit Spain to the war. Spain's neutrality during World War II allowed Franco to consolidate his power, but also kept Spain isolated from much of the post-war European recovery. The legacy of the Spanish Civil War continued to shape Spain long after Franco's death in 1975. The conflict had left deep ideological divisions that took decades to heal. The war had been a precursor to World War II, foreshadowing the ideological battles that would later define the global conflict. Franco's regime left a lasting mark on Spain's political landscape, and the memories of the war remained vivid in the minds of those who lived through it. Franco's regime marked the rise of Spanish fascism, which was intertwined with the broader European fascist movements of the time. The regime sought to suppress regional autonomy, particularly in Catalonia and the Basque Country, and promoted a centralized Spanish identity. The government's repression of left-wing ideologies, along with its use of nationalism and Catholicism as tools of control, mirrored the rise of fascist governments across Europe. Franco's fascism continued to exert influence in Spain for decades, well into the Cold War. Franco's Spain was a key player in the ideological struggle between fascism, communism, and democracy. Though isolated for much of his rule, Franco eventually forged relations with the United States and other Western democracies during the Cold War as a counterweight to the communist bloc. Spain's alignment with the West, however, did not erase the shadow of its fascist past. Franco's regime remained a point of contention, particularly in relation to Spain's democratic transition after his death. Under Franco's rule, Spanish culture and art were deeply influenced by fascist ideology. The regime promoted conservative and nationalistic art forms, while repressing avant-garde and left-wing movements. The Spanish Civil War and its aftermath became central themes in the work of many Spanish artists, who either supported the Republicans or were exiled due to their opposition to Franco's regime. Spanish cinema, literature, and art during this period were marked by a stark divide between pro-Franco and anti-Franco voices. After Franco's death, Spain underwent a remarkable transition to democracy. In 1978, Spain adopted a new constitution that established a constitutional monarchy and parliamentary democracy. The transition, known as the Spanish Transition, was marked by negotiations between the old guard of Franco's regime and reformist political leaders. The process was not without difficulties, as the country grappled with its fascist past, but it ultimately led to Spain's integration into the European community and its peaceful entry into the modern era. The Spanish Civil War continues to resonate in Spain's collective memory. While the country has moved toward democracy, the scars of the war and the Franco dictatorship remain in its political and cultural landscape. Debates over the legacy of Franco's regime, the memory of the victims, and the unresolved issues of the Civil War still provoke controversy and dialogue in modern Spain. The war was not just a precursor to World War II, but also a defining moment in Spain's journey toward reconciliation and democracy.